The Gerber Gator Jr. 2 is the shorter version of the larger big brother, the Gerber Gator. It is a 10 3/4 inch long blade machete. My wife and I originally purchased this at Walmart on an impulse buy, walking through the sporting goods section, as we often do, looking for survival and prepping gear. Let's see if I can get you a good close-up of that. Survival and prepping gear to add to our collection. And we saw this. Feels good, has a nice grip. Let me show you the grip. It's a rubberized overmold, kind of a gator pattern to it. It's large. I like the feel of it. I got fairly long hands, long fingers. This actually sat in our vehicles for a couple of years. Originally purchased to put in my wife's bug out bag in her vehicle, which is a very large bag because it's equipped to hold stuff for both her and our 5 children. After a few revisions to the bug out bags, it ended up in my vehicle with mine. I carry a much smaller and very well stocked get home bag, if you will. It's equipped for 3 days, maybe longer if needed. But this machete is a little on the short side, which I liked. I thought it would be easier for a pack, a little bit lighter weight. But regardless, it ended up in mine, and there it sat. Just the other day, my wife was out butchering some chickens. We had some meat chickens that were ready to be butchered, and not being able to find a hatchet because her children always take it and run off to the woods with it to go build forts or whatever they do, children being country children. She grabbed a meat cleaver out of the kitchen, threw a quick edge on it, and it was working, but she had to hack at it pretty good. So I went to the truck, picked this up, and it proved to work better. Now, having wanted to do a gear review on this item for a while, after she got done, I went and used it on a 3.5 inch tree, a tree that we had cut down on the property and was going to cut up for firewood anyhow. It was dead and needed to be taken out. It worked. You know, because of its shorter length, when you thrust it, you don't have quite as much thrust with it. It took a little more force and effort to get through it. The edge on this blade, as it came new, sucks. Definitely needs sharpening. It's not very sharp at all, but it got through the tree and definitely worked. The chips that it was giving off were not impressive, and in my opinion quite small. The saw, on the other hand, did quite well. On that same tree, about 3.5 inches in diameter, it cut through it readily in the first pass, or not first pass, but first time I cut through it. I made 3 more cuts through the same tree, each time moving further down towards the trunk of the tree, and by the time I got to the 3rd cut, the tree, or that portion of the tree, had reached about 4 inches in length, or in girth rather, and it took some effort. I was getting winded. The saw did not seem to be cutting as well as it did the first cut, but it was doing good nonetheless. I'll try to roll on some footage of this stuff as I'm explaining here. And as you can imagine, a 4-inch diameter tree, there's not much stroke to be had on a tree that size. So you got to really short stroke it to get through a tree like that. As far as chopping at the limbs and getting them out of the way, it did okay. It was not super impressive, but it did the job. It got it done. And then I, just today in fact, took it to go try split some kindling with it. Now granted, this is in my bug out bag. It's for survival and emergency purposes. In an emergency situation, I would love to have this. This is better than nothing at all, for sure. It's lighter weight than a very large knife would be, or even a hatchet. I was asking it to do the work of a hatchet because in my bug out bag, if I had to survive, that's what I would have available to me. It does not replace a hatchet. If you have the room and or don't mind the added weight, then I would say that a hatchet would be better. But this got the job done. Now, I first started off with a 3/4 inch piece of cedar trim, split that up. Of course, that's kiln dried. It's split real easy, no problems at all. That was to be expected. Then I moved to a smaller piece of cedar firewood that had been pre-split. I tried to split it into kindling. It didn't even touch it. It was a complete failure. Wouldn't even, in my opinion, not at all. Now maybe if I took another larger chunk of wood and used it as a mallet and beat down on it as I'm going through the cedar, it would have probably done it. But just by thrust alone, it did not go through that piece of cedar. Then I grabbed a piece of pine that was saturated with sap. It did go through that. It had a little bit more moisture to it. It handled that pine okay, which surprised me. I thought if it didn't do the cedar, it wouldn't do that pine either, but it did. It worked good for getting shavings off that cedar. So if I was in a situation where I needed to create some tinder to get an emergency fire going, this would work good for that. But I also carry, good knives in my bug out bag. The Tanto style, what's the brand of it? I'll try to roll on a picture of it when I can. Anyhow, I have a Tanto style knife that's just an amazing knife that I carry with me always, and that one I would use for creating shavings as well. A few things. After not much use, it feels pretty solid right now, but there is some slack and play in the handle. Fortunately, Gerber does provide us with these 2 screws right here. We can tighten it up. The string. Gerber recommends this. If I get it on here. Gerber recommends it going on there like that. Then you wrap your hand through it like so. I don't like it. I don't like strings or straps dangling from my gear. In fact, when I was trying to chop the limbs off that first tree I was whittling on, I did not do that. I was holding it like this with the string just dangling around. And not to my surprise, the string actually caught a limb and about pulled the knife out of my hand. Now, if I'd been holding it like Gerber recommended, just like I showed you, like this, that probably wouldn't have happened. But I don't want to have to do that. I think that's just stupid. So, after this review, this string's probably going to be taken off. Looks like I'm going to have to cut it off. I don't like strings. They're just retarded. They do give the hole up top. Don't know what good purpose that would serve, but it's there. Maybe if you wanted to hang it in your garage or shop, that would work well for that. Overall, not a bad piece. It is a Gerber, so as all things like Gerber, it comes with their lifetime warranty, and that's something to be said for that. The sheath, on the other hand, the sheath, in my opinion, sucks. It has one strap, Velcro or hook and loop. It has one belt loop. You can see it's very thin, tight. You'd have to be hard pressed to get a thick belt through that. Single stitching up here, some weak, not very good stitching down here. Obviously the sheath is made in China. As far as the knife goes, I'm not sure where it's made. It's not marked anywhere on it. It has 1, 2, 3 rivets in it. They call it a riveted sheath. I think they're pushing the envelope there. If I think of a riveted sheath, I think of the full length of it. The other things I don't like about it is It doesn't hold it securely. I think that that's just lousy. It's just not very good. It's thick up here along the spine. Unnecessary room and play. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear it, have it be solid. Lack of attachment points. You only got the one belt loop right there. So attaching it to a backpack, bug out bag, or any other system is going to be very difficult. It is nylon, so I guess if you wanted to sew some other attachment points to it, you could. But it's just, the sheath is lousy. Gerber had to give us something with the unit, so they gave us this. It's cheap, and in my opinion, it's just junk. But nonetheless, it's got the sheath, and I keep it in it. Hope you find this review helpful. I give it a rating of 3 out of 5 stars. Things that could have made it better. Sharper blade from the factory. I've got to go through and resharpen this, get a better edge on it. Better sheath. Would have definitely given it a better rating. Full tang through the handle would have helped, so it wouldn't have loosened up. But with that being said, it does have the Allen screws that can tighten it. There's the gear review of the Gerber Gator Jr. So the stats on this unit is the blade length is 10 3/4 of an inch. I already mentioned that. It is made from high carbon steel. The overall length is 18 3/4 from tip to tip. And Gerber claims its weight at 14 ounces, 14.3 ounces, excuse me. I find their weight to be a little off, and we'll check that right here in the camera. Get this into view of the camera here. Blade only 15.4 ounces. I don't know if you can see that with the glare. 15.4 ounces. Let's check that with the sheath. With the sheath, $18.9 ounces. So both of those are definitely heavier than what Gerber claims. Sheath material's nylon, I already mentioned that. And then the rubber overmold handle. Not a lot to it. Not a bad unit. Not the greatest unit. I do like its shorter length for a backpack. I do like the fact that it is a dual purpose tool with the saw along the back of the spine here. So that keeps me from having to pack yet again another tool that'll get it done for me. I'm sure that could go through bone if you wanted to, or small pieces of wood. Great tool.